Alright, so this is just a quick hint for one of the questions in assignment 1. It's question 5. So you're given this system up here. Alright, where is it? Other stuff. Alright, you're given this system up here. It's a 3x3 system, so 3 equations, 3 unknowns. This zero thing is pretty important actually. We're going to get that later on, but let's not worry about it. We have a k sitting in here, so that's our little tunable parameter. We can play around with that and see when this system is good, bad, ugly, or something else. Alright, so much needed to put it into an augmented matrix form, so let's do that. We've got 1k0, 0, 1k0, 0, 3 minus 3 plus 3 equals 0, so we've got this business here, 0, 1, 1, 0, reading them off. Now, this is where, we've got a k sitting here, this is where using the same form over and over and over again, right, the same mechanics helps us out. So, R2 prime, the first thing we're going to do is try and get rid of this character here, and then we'll get rid of this one, and then we'll get rid of this one. This one is already toast, it's already 0, so we can skip it. R2 prime, so the row 2 becomes the old row 2 minus some multiple of row 1. That multiple is L21, and 3 divided by 1. That's the first pivot, right? First pivot is here, it's D1, good. Same formalism every time. We put a nice big tilde there, big juicy tilde, it's equivalent to. So the first and third rows do not change. We're changing the second row. Second row is changing. So this is the whole point. We're trying to get a 0 here. So 3 minus 3 gives us 0. And then we just handle whatever mess we get here. It's minus 3 minus 3k. Boop. 3 minus something times 0 doesn't matter, so it's still 3. And the 0's out here, there's never going to change. Alright, so now we have to think about what could happen here, and I'll tell you a little bit. So if it's equal to 0, the second pivot is missing, which means that it's zilch, right? That's another way of saying 0. So we can't use it, right? We're using our pivots in the multipliers. It turns out the pivots are on the bottom, so if that's 0, things explode. So you have to figure out solve this terrifically complicated thing here for k. And that will give you a value of k for which there's a missing second pivot. Then, so this is 0, meaning this is 0. So 0, 0, 3, 0, and then 0, 1, 1, 0. What you can see is you can save the day with a row swap. And then you'll see you have 3 pivots. Alright, so that's your argument there. Now, let's assume that this is not 0. So it's fine if it's 0, because we end up with 3 pivots, you have to do a row swap. Let's not do the row swap. Let's say we have k is not whatever this special value is. This is non-zero. This blob here is some number. We can use it as a pivot. It's not missing, right? So that's what this is. Assume 3 minus 3k is not equal to 0. This is our second pivot, D2. So we can go on to the row operation that would get rid of this character here. We don't have to do anything here. That's a question that's sitting down here. What happened to L31? Normally it would do this. That's a little question for you. So the third row, we're changing the third row, that's why it's in red, the third row. The blue, always the same. Third row, the new third row is the old third row minus whatever this number is we're trying to get rid of, 1, divided by the pivot, minus 3k, times row 2, right? D2 is on the bottom. This whole thing is L32, champion. Alright, so if you go through and do that, the top 2 rows don't change, right? We're only changing row 3. We have a 0 here already. Not going to change. Alright, 0 minus 0. This is the whole point. You can go through and calculate it, do it algebraically, but we're dividing this back here, we're dividing this by the pivot, we're dividing the pivot by itself, multiplying by 1, and then subtracting from here. So that's going to give us 0. Then this horrible beast is 1 minus 3 times all of this. So that's this little blob in here. You can simplify it. You should do that. You can clean this up nicely. This is the third pivot. Then the rest of the answer is, the rest of the problem is, well, what happens, when is this guy a bad guy? Right? So if it's 0, if this is 0 and you have to figure out the k for which it's 0, then you've got zeros all along the bottom. Doesn't tell you anything. That equation has disappeared. You have 2 equations here, and you have to think about whether they have 0 solutions or infinitely many solutions. 2 planes. Later on in the course we'll get to a much better way of understanding whether there are 0 or infinitely many solutions. But here I want you to be able to see these are equations of planes, so you'll be able to see whether they Right, so they're planes. So do they hit like this? Or are they parallel to each other? Or are they the same? Or can you tell just by looking at them without solving the whole thing? Alright, people. Good.